So, a very controversial issue right now is the idea of globalization. But why do people disagree about whether globalization is beneficial, and what do both sides of the debate really think? This video will hopefully shed some light on the topic. First, what is globalization? Broadly speaking, when people say globalization, they are referring to the massive increase in free trade in the world and the decrease in trade barriers since the 1970s. For example, a lot of goods are now made in factories in India or China instead of the United States or the UK because of cheaper labor costs in those countries. Globalization is controversial because many people believe that free trade causes domestic workers to lose their jobs. But the issue is actually a lot more complicated than that. To understand globalization's effects, you have to understand three things: free trade, technology, and a country's government policies. All of these three things are explanations for what is really causing the loss in jobs, and they're all interlinked. First, in terms of free trade, the economic explanation is relatively straightforward. A more globalized world with freer movement of labor and capital means that companies have more flexibility when choosing where they would like to locate. Companies usually choose areas where they have to pay lower wages to workers, and so many multinational companies have chosen to create factories overseas in countries like China or India where wages are low. This has hit the manufacturing sector in high-income countries particularly hard, as local jobs have been relocated to countries overseas. But this isn't the end of the story. Globalization is actually really complicated because people are losing jobs not just because of companies relocating, but also because of a massive increase in technological capabilities in the 21st century. People are no longer needed in many assembly lines because they've been replaced by robots. Travel agents get replaced by websites like TripAdvisor, and so on. Most academics who study this think that technology is a bigger cause of people losing jobs than free trade. For instance, France loses an average of 60,000 manufacturing jobs a year, and 10,000 of these jobs are lost due to trade. 20,000 of these jobs are lost due to technology. But this question isn't settled, and it's still up for debate. However, there's another layer of complication. Technology and trade are interlinked. An increase in trade in the last few decades was made possible only due to technological advancements like increased shipping technology and the internet. Also, due to a more connected world and the subsequent increased sharing of knowledge between countries, technological progress has grown at an accelerated rate. So, trade and technology have an interactive effect on one another. Finally, how much technology and trade causes people to lose jobs depends a lot on the economic policies of the country in question. For instance, laws and culture that permit strong worker unions often limit the extent that certain jobs are outsourced overseas, and hence reduces the impact of free trade on job loss in that country. This is a reason why different countries have experienced very different degrees of deindustrialization and job loss. For instance, relative to the US and the UK, interpersonal inequality in France is much lower, and there has been much less job loss, and this is due to differences in laws like unionization. So, as you can see, the globalization debate is really complicated, and it's not as simple as people lose their jobs because more manufacturing is now taking place overseas. The relative impact of free trade, technology, and domestic government policies on job loss is still very unclear and is being researched. Hopefully this video provides you a good starting point if you want to research this issue further.